Hello everyone, this is Lord Shadrach speaking. I just came across this list of so-called male privileges. As you can tell, it's all just a bunch of grade A bullshit. And in the duration of this video, I'm going to be debunking quite a number of them, because whoever wrote this obviously does not have any idea about privileges, and this person wants to pass off this nonsense as male privilege, and that's not the case. To start off, we have the privilege to murder, which is bullshit because it's saying men have a right to kill, which is not true because there are no cultures that condone such attitudes. Regardless of race, religion, or gender, this talk of men having this right to murder is not true. Now, there are cultures, yes, that do honor killings, but the thing is that honor killings are only practiced by a few cultures. In fact, the vast majority of other cultures do not even engage in such a thing. And as for this talk about how men can threaten women without any penalty, that again is bullshit, because there are heavy penalties regardless of what the threat is or what it entailed. And they also want to say that men are portrayed in films and video games, what have you, as dying on their feet and fighting back, whereas in recent times, films and video games and TV shows have depicted women fighting back, and even some women have even survived. Then you go down and you see this privilege to rape, which is bullshit in itself because men are susceptible to rape as well. But the thing is, male victims of rape do not speak out because they're afraid of being labeled as a coward or a sissy or a pussy. And so number 2 has been proven as bullshit, and so is number 1. Now number 3, saying ownership of women's bodies and what have you, it goes on to say that there's inequality because laws in rape culture are notorious by making women the sex class, which is not true, because there are laws which protect women against harassment. In addition, there have been laws and what have you, politicians, I should say, that are fighting for the ability of getting abortions and contraceptions. And that right there, to say that there are laws against such a thing, is an insult to those politicians who are actually fighting for the right to abort and for the right to have contraception. Then we go down to the privilege of prostitution, and I read that, I was amazed. Are you shitting me? No, seriously. Did it ever occur to the person who wrote this list that men are also prostitutes? Now, not that I would want anything to do with a male prostitute, because I prefer women. But anyways, that right there has been debunked. And number 5 goes on to say the privilege of violence against women. This is saying that while men use violence, that men have somehow a right to use violence against women and what have you. And while men use violence to defend themselves, I highly doubt that any of those men would ever want to hurt anyone unless they're in danger for their own lives, much less hurt women. As for this talk about women's self-defense, this is a great insult to those women that are in martial arts classes, because it's right here trying to say that women's self-defense is marginalized and doesn't even work. So what a nice job insulting female martial artists. That to me right there is an insult. And this privilege to hate women, I guess feminists have no problem with hating men. Yet, if you hate a woman, they get all mad, which is very hypocritical of them. And the privilege of sexual harassment? Good luck with that, because if you ever tried that, you'd get fired. And then they have this talk about the male gaze, you know, the male gaze where a man looks at a woman. I guess it's acceptable for a woman to look at a man, but not a man to look at a woman. Again, there's a lot of hypocrisy here. Also, the privilege of pornography, they're trying to say that only men have access to pornography, but that's not the case because there is pornography catered to women. And then there's this privilege to make the rules, which is again a bunch of bogus nonsense, because all this talk of making the rules. In fact, there have been laws throughout history that have actually benefited women. Now, feminists want to ignore this fact, but if you actually do the research, you'll find laws that, believe it or not, benefited women. I'll even have some laws from the Code of Hammurabi if you want me to do that. I'll even go as far as to post some of those laws there. Now, number 11 was pretty interesting, the privilege of owning religion. Now, as a Christian, it should be noted that there have been two books in the Bible, called Ruth and Esther, respectively, that were devoted to women doing extraordinary things. Jesus Christ himself even defended women and spoke to women with respect. And while Eve ate of the forbidden fruit, Adam gets the blame, which is why Adam's sin is what it's been called. That's what it's called in the Bible, is Adam's sin. Even though Eve ate of the fruit, Adam gets the blame because Adam was the sole responsibility of humanity. He was the first representative of humanity. But I'm not here to talk about theology, I'm just here to debunk this list. The privilege of marriage, they say, is to sanctify the ownership of women by men, and that is not true, because the purpose of marriage is to raise a family. In fact, the reason why women are left raising the children is that men are going out and making all the money and providing for their families. And it's always been like that. Now, I don't mean to appeal to tradition, but that's the truth right there. Now, from 13 to 15, which says the privilege to define everything, privilege to define women, the privilege of not being judged. Women define men in stereotypical ways just as much as men define women in stereotypical ways. And it's upsetting because they want to think that feminists want to believe that only men do the judging, yet the way they refer to men is also hypocritical because they judge men based on stereotypical factors. Now, it's disgusting right here with number 15, the privilege of not being judged, is that men can be judged for their mistakes. In fact, men who neglect their families are oftentimes regarded with scorn and contempt. Also, if a man fails, he's told to man up and be a man. Now this right here, number 16, the privilege of physical strength. What a great way of insulting female bodybuilders. Wow, what an insensitive idiot to have ever wrote this really was not doing their research. Because there have been female bodybuilders, and this right here saying that men have the privilege of physical strength is just an insult to those female bodybuilders, among other things. And it's just disgusting. Then we have number 17, which is men are the default gender, talking about how men are rarely ever targeted or stereotyped or held liable because of their gender, which is not true, because men in the media are always stereotyped as being slobs, incompetent, bumbling fools, or just morons in general that have no maturity whatsoever, as though they're overgrown teenagers, if you will. And that right there is disgusting. Now we have 18 and 19, privilege of unquestioned majority and privilege of women's invisibility. Now, these two are bogus because, number one, men are not the only gender on this planet. There are also women. And I don't know of any men out there that have ever taken credit of a man's work. Men taking credit of a woman's work. And that right there is just bogus. I don't know where this person gets their facts and figures from. It's just their opinion and not a fact. Now, the privilege of men's comfort. I know it says something else entirely, but this right here is just stupid because here's the reason why. Why did men plan vacations and why are they going out to decide what neighborhoods they live in? The reason for this is that men do so because they're concerned for the safety of their wives. I mean, no man in his right mind would ever want a woman to go someplace dangerous, let alone live in a bad neighborhood. And it's saying right here that women must make whatever personal and financial sacrifices that are necessary to meet these decisions. Well, I guess it doesn't occur to this writer that men sacrifice comfort for the safety of their wives, yet this person is obviously oblivious to this fact. And number 21, men are just as harassed as much as women. In fact, if a man is harassed, no one says anything, and which is bogus, and it's just insanity at its finest. Now, number 22 goes back to the media thing, where in the media, women are usually proven right, and men are always by default wrong. And we go down here, right here down to number 23. Women are given the same access to safe sex as much as men. As for careers that have been destroyed by affairs and nude pictures, I guess Anthony Weiner doesn't ring a bell for this person. I guess this person likes to pick and choose exactly what is a career-ruining affair and what is not. And number 24 says the privilege to speak, from blogging to politics, stand-up comedy. Men have the privilege to speak publicly with authority, without harassment for doing so. And this, of course, is an insult to female bloggers, female YouTube celebrities, stand-up comedians, and female politicians. So this right here, number 24, has been disproven yet again. And where this person gets off saying this is bogus and bullshit. And number 25, privilege to end debate. Men, you can use their tyranny of speech to quiet everyone else. That's not true. Women have that same ability too. Yet, this person only wants to say that only men have that privilege, but that's been disproven. The privilege of having no privileges. What privileges is this person talking about here? I have disproved every single one of them, and this person is trying to say that men can choose to be oblivious of these privileges, which, of course, these privileges have been proven bogus. Privilege of relative safety. Again, it goes back to saying men don't have to live their entire lives in fear. In fact, this is also stupid because there are men that live in fear all the time. You know, there are some men that won't even go out the door because they're that afraid. And in fact, some men even go as far as to have firearms with them because they're afraid of someone trying to mess with them. And some men even sign up for martial arts classes too. And number 28 tries to say that men are immune to rape and what have you, which again is bogus because we've seen before, and we've proven this before, that even men are susceptible to rape as well. 29 and 30 go together because they're trying to say that only men can have space to themselves, as well as privacy and personal space, which is bogus because women have women-only clubs, women-only venues, and women-only channels on television. And that right there has been disproven, which is, of course, bogus to say that, but this person wants to believe in such a thing. And this privilege of male attributes. Would someone please define what is a male attribute? Please tell me what that is. And the privilege to network, that privilege is also extended to women, so don't say that only men have that privilege. Men do not have this right as there are laws preventing harassment. That's number 23. Excuse me, number 33. Number 34 says fear of failure, and number 35 is praise of mediocrity. In fact, women are given a free pass because, oh, they're women. If they can screw up and people will say, oh, they're a woman, it's okay, try again. But if a man screws up, he's oftentimes regarded with contempt and scorn, and that right there is just wrong. Well, anyways, this is all I have for this video. Expect the next one real soon.